Hello everybody, Ollie here and welcome back to one of these end of the week wrap-up videos, and it really is, in fact it's gone the end of the week. I've just looked at my clock, it's 12:06, so we're actually technically into Monday. I will do my best. I'm just going to kind of run through everything again. What happened on Monday? The sky turned yellow, at least here. I think it was very red in other parts of the country. It was something to do with dust from the Sahara, I think, being blown around Ireland or somewhere. I'm not 100% sure what happened, but the sky turned a funny colour on Monday. Tuesday, again, basically very little happened. We spent the whole lunchtime playing pool, having found a little games room in the side of the Union, which was really fun. We were all absolute garbage, but the trash talk was good, the drink was good, and I guess that's all you can hope for. I remember the seminar was very, very good. That morning, we had a really fast whiz round the cell cycle that for some reason completely omitted mitosis, the kind of central big player in the cell cycle, so I'm not sure why we skipped over that. Hopefully it'll be covered in more detail fully. I did quite a lot of the sort of cycling system during my last degree at Newcastle, but yeah, that was odd. Wednesday was a really interesting day. We finished our CBL case. The guy turned out to have ulcerative colitis, so we saw an endoscopy video. Basically, we weren't sure whether it was ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. We had the endoscopy and we found the sort of patchy white lesions on the inside that we expected to see as a result of ulcerative colitis rather than Crohn's, which has a sort of cobblestoney appearance. So that happened. We also had a really quick run through of the structure and function of the kidney. The lecturer's great, guy called Jamie. He's a really fantastic lecturer, but these lectures were just so, this one lecture was really rapid. So I'm going to have to spend time going through that. But I actually really quite like, or I find easy to remember, the structure of the kidney, because each of its parts are quite distinctive and it just logically sort of makes sense to me, I think. So that'll help. But the really good part of Wednesday was in the afternoon we went to George Eliot Hospital in Nuneaton for our clinical skills training. So we did first aid and infection control. On the topic of Nuneaton, this afternoon, so it's Sunday the 22nd, or it was Sunday the 22nd, very recently, there was a gunman had taken a load of people, or a few people at least, hostage in a bowling alley, I believe. So I had a lot of messages from people saying, like, are you okay? Yes, thankfully. As far as I know, that situation's been resolved and everyone's fine. But moving on, we had our first aid training using the Annie dummies. The name Annie for these dummies comes from the death mask of an 18th, I think, century French woman who drowned in the river Seine. And they used that mask as the basis for the face of these dummies, so they're sort of referred to as Annies for that reason. But they were really cool. I'd done St John's Ambulance first aid training before, so I was kind of familiar with what was going on. It was just basic CPR and that sort of thing, but you know, just doing chest compressions at the right frequency and depth. And these dummies were really cool. They actually lit up as you did the compressions, and they would only, it sort of showed you how blood would flow towards the head, but it would only do it properly if you had the position, the intensity and the frequency correct of your compressions. They were really cool, and the people doing the training for us were really nice as well. And in the second part of the visit, so the first part was first aid, the second part was infection control and kind of how to deal with basic wounds. So there were 6 or 7 training stations set up that we had to go around. I was with Tom, we kind of paired up and went round each of them. There were ones like putting someone in the recovery position, how to deal if someone's got an allergy, like how to administer an EpiPen, how to do a sling to support an arm, or packing like a wound with glass in it, things like that. But the best one, it was this thing called a choking Charlie, which was sort of like the torso of a guy, and he had what is most easily described as a ping pong ball lodged kind of in his artificial airway, and you had to do the Heimlich maneuver, like an abdominal thrust. We're ready. Excellent. Inwards, and if you did it right, he would sort of expel this ping pong ball out, which was really, really funny. That night as well, so I came back from George Eliot. It took us nearly an hour to get back from the hospital to uni because it was rush hour traffic, and the Neuro Society, which I want to be involved with, and I think as of now I have some committee position, but I'm not sure what it is. They were showing The English Surgeon, the film about Henry Marsh. I've read both his books now. There are reviews coming, really, really good books, so look those up. But there was a film made about him when he went to the Ukraine and kind of did surgery and helped over there with kind of very basic, worn-out equipment. And so they were doing a showing of this film. I'd only ever seen the first half of it, so I thought, you know, this will be a great opportunity because I can go and meet members of the society and I can see this film that I really want to see. And I was so tired by the end of the day, I actually fell asleep before the halfway point on my hand. It was just being shown in a lecture hall. And so I fell asleep on the desk, woke up, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes later, and decided it was definitely time to go home, so I snuck out. I still have not seen the latter half of the film. So Thursday we started a new CBL case, and this time it was a guy who could not urinate properly. He got up many times during the night, or nocturia I think that's called. So he got up to wee a lot during the night and had a lot of urine retention, like weak flow, and didn't feel like he was eliminating everything that he could do. So the suspicion that we came to, and we are currently at, because we have the next session of this case tomorrow, was an enlarged prostate, because the prostate kind of wraps around the urinary tract. But the question is at the moment, is it a kind of benign expansion, hyperplasia of the prostate, so it sort of gets larger and compresses the tract inwards, which obviously restricts flow, but that can happen both in benign cases and in cancerous cases. So what we have opted to do, or what we would have done, is check for a prostate-specific antigen, which would tell us whether it was cancerous or not. Incidentally, the largest bladder apparently known to medical records, as in the largest amount of fluid contained within one, is 6 litres. 6 litres of urine. Imagine holding that inside you. That afternoon we also had a really interesting lecture about patient-centred care, which we kind of drew from different ethical models, or philosophical models, I suppose. So the 3 that we've covered to kind of inform how patient care should be done, but this was about taking the needs and considerations of the patient into perspective. But the last guy that spoke was a GP. I'm sure he'd been a GP for 20 or 30 years, he said. But it was a talk about how to, during a case history taking session, how to just try and connect with the actual person a bit more closely. You know, just asking about things like, what do you do for a living, and just trying to make that basic human connection, because when we've been practicing the history taking, we're presented this very formulaic, regimented kind of chart, essentially a table to work through, and it is just a guideline, but because we're given it and because that's how we're marked, there's this real tendency to just go bang, 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 work down this list. But this guy was saying, you know, just try and be less regimented and try and make it an actual connection, because it's a really good opportunity to learn more about the patient than they'd necessarily tell you otherwise. And it was a really nice change as well, because it gave the feeling, so if I use my last degree as a reference, I was always learning. Whenever I was learning something, I was just learning it to pass the exam, basically. It's what do I need to know in order to pass, to get a good degree and move on. I didn't kind of think about it any further than that, and that was a mistake in retrospect, because in this case it's much more like, I'm going to learn this because it will eventually make me a good doctor, not, you know, not just to pass an exam. It feels like there's a lot more to it. So Friday, back in the hospital, so in the morning we had anatomy again. These sessions just continue to blow me away. I think they are my favourite part of, well, Fridays are definitely my favourite day of the week. So anatomy in the morning. So in this one we were looking at the liver, spleen and pancreas, and just because we've started to learn more, the complete picture of the abdomen is starting to come together a little bit more in my head, which I'm really happy about. I do find anatomy quite challenging, but now that I have we're starting to build a more holistic picture. It's becoming easier with time, which is a really nice thing to notice. We had our first radiography session with two really good lecturers. It was in a really hot room though, and a lot of people, I think about half the people in the room were asleep. There were maybe 20 of us in there, but it was about just the different types of scans, so like CTs, MRIs, X-rays, and the kind of tips and tricks about how to tell what's what and what the things mean in different types. So that was really interesting. We had clinical skills in the afternoon, and that was more on taking a history, but the focus, instead of the actual content of the history, was all about your manner and how you present yourself, how you actually interact with a patient. And like, I kid you not, the simulated patient that we had for this session was the one I had for my interview in the role play, and I just like froze up a little bit when I sat down. Me and Imtiaz, who you've seen in the blog before, went first. We were kind of going round in pairs, and we were the first to go, so we had the weakest performance, but equally it was really good. I just wanted to get stuck in and get going, and then as we went round the room we all kind of improved. We got feedback from the simulated patient, from the instructor, and from each other, and I found it really, really helpful, but it's something that I just really want to practice and get better at. But really special weekend, and partially the reason why I'm filming this so late. I spent the weekend in Newcastle. I went up on Saturday morning, and I bumped into my friend James first. So he works at a bookshop that will not be named in Newcastle. So I went to see him there, and it was really good to see him. He took me to the sort of medical book sections. I'm actually looking for a copy of Grey's Anatomy, the 3rd edition, the sort of newest version, because a lot of the course images and the things we need to learn for exams are all taken from Grey's, so it makes sense to buy that textbook. And they actually had a sale on it, but I didn't buy it because I didn't want to be lugging around a heavy textbook, but I can have it delivered, so that's what I'm going to do. I then went from there to the Hancock in Newcastle, which, if you've been to Newcastle before as a student, you'll know it. It's opposite the university, right next to the Robinson Library. Really cheap, really kind of student haunt pub, but really, really nice, really cheap food. And we were there for maybe 3 and a bit hours. People were just sort of assembling. We chatted there, then we moved from there to the Courier office in the Union, which is the newspaper office where I've spent so many hours of my life. From there we tried to go to Men's Bar, the sort of student union bar. Now it was closed at that point, and then we moved to a place called Purple Bear, which I've never been to before, just off Northumberland Street, the main street in Newcastle, kind of underground, but really nice place. Had a lot of European beer.
Hello.
I ordered a beer which I couldn't drink because I'm on antibiotics at the moment, so I just gave it to my friend. That was fine. And then after that went back to James's. I was staying with him overnight, and just for an hour we just kicked back and played some Halo, which was really, really fun. I've never actually played any of the games in the Halo series, so just doing that. And right, over the last, well, I've been here 4 weeks. The last 4 weeks I've played 90 minutes worth of video games. I've just been so busy. I do enjoy gaming. You know, I wrote a lot of gaming articles. I run a gaming website, but I've just had so little time, or at least the time that I've had, I've felt so guilty about doing that during it. I was like, why can't I be, or like, I should be revising the structure of the thyroid right now, or something. But it was really nice just for Saturday night, just to completely unwind and catch up with people. I've made some really, really strong friendships in Newcastle, friends that I'm really confident that I'll have for years, and I hope to make the same sort of relationships here in Warwick. Obviously I've only been here a month, so premature yet, but yeah, it was just so nice. I came back this morning reasonably early. I was really tired and kept falling asleep on the train, but I didn't have a reserved ticket. So what would happen, well, I had a ticket, but not one that reserved me a specific seat. So I would go and sit somewhere, fall asleep, be asleep for maybe 15-20 minutes, and then be shouted at by the person's seat. But no, by the person whom the seat belonged to that I was sat in. So I'd get up, walk somewhere else, sit down, and repeat this cycle. But I kept doing this like walk of shame up and down the same carriage, moving to a different seat every time, and the people that were going the same distance as me like could see me doing this this walk up and down. It was very pitiable. But that kind of brings us up to right now. I've done a bit of work tonight, had a lot to eat. I'm about to eat again before I go to bed. I'm really hungry. I haven't really eaten before getting back mid-afternoon. Although, before I do go, I've acquired some things this week. So, not having a Primark in Leamington has made me really reluctant to buy clothes, but I went to a Primark in Birmingham. I bought this lovely like burgundy dressing gown, which was very cheap. These also arrived, and what these are, they're not like BDSM gear, don't worry. These are shirt stays, so this clips to the top of your sock, right? And then these two clip to the front and back of your shirt, and the idea is that it keeps your shirt tucked in really tight, and they do work really well. The first time I put them on, I didn't tighten one of them enough, and it like flew backwards and hit me in the forehead, and that was very painful. The last thing is I have started lifting weights because I've decided that I really need to put on some weight. So I'm eating a lot and lifting weights, and I've stopped doing cardio because I go running quite a lot. I did at Newcastle, and I just think I want to make a concerted effort to change this aspect of myself. So I really want to do this properly. So a lot of calories, lift weights, a lot of protein, I suppose, and I need to sleep, a lot of sleep. But beyond that, me and Emily did some work for the anatomy workshop this coming Friday, just to try and get a bit of a head start on it, and that's kind of been it. So that's everything up to scratch, guys, up to date at least. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to stay subscribed to the channel, hit the like button if you would, and find me on Facebook and Twitter, PostGradMedic on Facebook, at the Ollie Burton on Twitter. Just get involved. Ask me anything you want to know. If you enjoy the blogs, let me know. Go and read the written blog. It's on the website, but I will see you next weekend. Take care. Bye bye for now.